The magazine rack, at the grocery store checkout, just another Tuesday afternoon. But there it was, Time magazine's cover. The face staring back at me was my own son, Marcus, the son I hadn't spoken to in 15 years. The son I told never to contact me again. The son whose existence I denied to my new wife, my church, my entire world. My hands trembled as I picked up that magazine. America's Young Innovator. How Marcus Johnson is revolutionizing clean energy for tomorrow's world. There he was, smiling with that same crooked grin he had when he was 7 years old, building impossible towers with his blocks. The cashier was staring. I was choking back tears in aisle 7 of a suburban grocery store, holding a magazine with my son's face on it. The son I abandoned because I was too much of a coward to face what loving him would cost me.
How did we get here? How did love turn into betrayal? How did a father's fear destroy the most important relationship of his life? And how did the little boy I once pushed on swings become the man changing the world while I rotted in my own shame?
This is the story of the biggest mistake I ever made. And it's a story that might just break your heart the way it broke mine. Music fades. Thank you for choosing to spend your time with this story. It means the world to me that you're here. If this resonates with you, please subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support keeps these stories alive. My name is David Patterson. I'm 62 years old, and I live in Millbrook, Connecticut. From the outside, my life looks perfect. Beautiful colonial house, manicured lawn, Mercedes in the driveway. I'm a partner at one of Hartford's most prestigious law firms. My second wife, Patricia, volunteers at the country club. We attend St. Matthew's Episcopal Church every Sunday, sitting in the same pew we've occupied for 12 years. But perfection is just another word for lie. And I've been living a lie for so long, I almost forgot what truth felt like. It started 28 years ago. I was 34, fresh off a bitter divorce, and drowning my sorrows at Murphy's Pub downtown. That's where I met Alicia. She was 26, a nurse at Hartford Hospital, with the most beautiful laugh I'd ever heard. She was also black, which in 1997 Connecticut wasn't the scandal it might have been in other places, but it wasn't exactly celebrated either. We fell in love fast and hard. Alicia had this way of seeing the world that made everything brighter. She'd point out shapes in the clouds, dance in her kitchen while making dinner, and had opinions about everything from jazz music to environmental policy. She was brilliant, funny, and she saw something in me that I'm not sure was ever really there. For 2 years we were inseparable. I'd pick her up after her shifts, we'd drive to the coast, and talk until sunrise. She'd come to my apartment, and we'd cook together, her teaching me about spices I'd never heard of, me burning everything I touched while she laughed. The pregnancy wasn't planned, but we were thrilled. I remember the day she told me, standing in my kitchen in her scrubs, holding the test with shaking hands. I picked her up and spun her around, both of us crying and laughing. We started picking out names that same night. Marcus David Patterson Johnson. We hyphenated it because we weren't married yet, but we were planning to be. I'd already bought the ring, a simple solitaire that took me 3 months to save for. But then my father had his stroke. Richard Patterson had been the senior partner at Patterson and Associates for 37 years. He'd built that firm from nothing, and he expected me to carry on the legacy. When he was lying in that hospital bed, barely able to speak, he made me promise to take over the firm, but there was another condition. No scandal, he whispered, his voice barely audible. The firm's reputation is everything. Clean it up, David. Whatever you need to clean up. I thought he was talking about the drinking, the late nights, the general mess I'd made of my life after the divorce. I didn't realize he knew about Alicia. I didn't know he'd been having me followed. Marcus was born on a Tuesday in March. 7 pounds, 2 ounces, with Alicia's eyes and what the nurses called Daddy's stubborn chin. I held him for the first time at 3:17 a.m., and I swear nothing else in the world existed in that moment. Just this tiny person who was half me and half the woman I loved. For the first 6 months we were a family. I'd rush home from work to find Alicia singing to Marcus while she changed his diaper. I'd take the night feedings walking him around the apartment while he fussed, talking to him about baseball and books and all the things we'd do together when he got older. I taught him to say dada before mama, which drove Alicia crazy in the most wonderful way. I'd come home and he'd reach for me with those tiny hands, and I felt like I could conquer the world. But the firm was struggling. Dad's clients were getting nervous about the transition. Some of the older partners questioned whether I was ready for the responsibility. And then Patricia showed up. Patricia Montgomery was everything my father thought I needed. Old Connecticut money, graduated from Vassar, volunteered with the right charities. Her father had been one of the firm's biggest clients before he passed. She was also recently divorced, looking for stability, and absolutely stunning in that untouchable way that made other men envious. She started coming to firm events, always finding reasons to talk to me. She was charming, appropriate, safe. She represented everything my father's world valued, and slowly, insidiously, I started to see my life with Alicia and Marcus through the eyes of that world. The first crack came during a client dinner. Patricia was there, of course, playing the perfect hostess. One of the senior partners, Harrison Bell, pulled me aside. "David, you're doing excellent work, taking over for your father, but there are some concerns about your personal life. Image matters in this business. We need to know our partners are stable, committed to the values our clients expect." He never said Alicia's name. He never mentioned Marcus, but I knew what he meant. I knew what they all meant when they talked about image and values and client expectations. That night, I went home to find Alicia feeding Marcus, humming softly while he dozed in her arms. She looked up at me with those trusting eyes and asked how my day was. I lied. I told her it was fine. I didn't tell her about the conversation, about the pressure, about the choice I was already starting to consider. Instead, I watched her put our son to bed, listened to her sing him the lullaby she'd made up just for him, and hated myself for what I was thinking. The second crack came 2 weeks later. Dad called me to his house. The first time he'd been strong enough for a real conversation since the stroke. "I've been thinking about the firm's future," he said, his words still slightly slurred, but his meaning crystal clear. "You've got potential, David, but you need to make smart choices. The Montgomery girl is a good match. Her family's been with us for generations. Dad, I'm with Alicia. We have a son." His face went cold. "You have a mistake, and mistakes can be corrected. Marcus isn't a mistake."
A black woman and a mixed child? In our world? David, use your head. You'll never make senior partner dragging that kind of baggage around. Clients will go elsewhere. The other partners are already talking.
I wanted to defend them. I wanted to stand up and walk out. I wanted to tell him that Alicia and Marcus were the best things that had ever happened to me. Instead, I sat there and listened. The next few months were agony. I started working later, coming home after Marcus was asleep. I picked fights with Alicia over nothing. Money, household chores, her friends. I was trying to create distance, but I was too much of a coward to admit it. Patricia was always there, understanding and patient. She'd bring lunch to the office, attend firm functions on my arm, play the role of supportive partner while I slowly destroyed my real family. Alicia knew something was wrong. She'd catch me staring at nothing, lost in my own thoughts. She'd try to talk to me, but I'd brush her off or change the subject. I watched the hurt accumulate in her eyes, day by day, until she stopped trying. The breaking point came when Marcus was 14 months old. He'd started walking, taking those wobbly toddler steps between the coffee table and the couch. Alicia called me at work, breathless with excitement. "David, you have to come home. Marcus is walking, really walking, not just those little steps." He walked clear across the living room. I should have dropped everything. I should have raced home to see my son's first real steps. Instead, I looked at my calendar and saw a meeting with potential clients. Important clients. The kind that could secure my future at the firm. "I can't right now, Alicia. I'm in meetings all afternoon." The silence on the other end of the phone lasted forever. "Okay," she said finally, her voice small. I'll try to get him to do it again when you get home." But I didn't get home until after 9. Marcus was asleep. Alicia was sitting on the couch, still in her work clothes, looking at me like she was seeing a stranger. "He waited for you," she said. "He kept looking at the door every time he heard a car. I think he knew you were supposed to be here." That night, lying in bed next to her, I made the worst decision of my life. I decided to choose the easy path. I decided to choose a life that would make everyone else happy and destroy the only real happiness I'd ever known. The plan was cowardly and methodical. I'd gradually withdraw from Alicia and Marcus, make her want to leave me. I'd make it seem like her choice, like the relationship just wasn't working. I'd pay child support quietly, maybe see Marcus occasionally, but I wouldn't be a real father. I'd be free to build the life everyone expected me to have. I started coming home even later. I canceled plans with weak excuses. When Alicia tried to talk about our future, I'd get uncomfortable and change the subject. When she suggested we look at houses together, I'd find reasons why it wasn't a good time. I was 21 when I learned that you could break someone's heart slowly, piece by piece, until they didn't even realize they were dying inside. The worst part was watching Marcus. He was too young to understand why Daddy wasn't around as much, why Mommy cried when she thought he wasn't looking, why the happy songs had stopped. But he felt it. Babies always feel it. He'd crawl to me when I came home, pulling himself up on my legs, looking at me with those bright, trusting eyes, and I'd pat his head absent-mindedly while checking my phone, already planning my escape from this life I'd once thought was perfect. Alicia held on longer than I deserved. She suggested counseling, date nights, a vacation together. She blamed herself, thinking she wasn't giving me enough space, wasn't being supportive enough of my career. She even offered to quit her job and stay home with Marcus if that's what I wanted. The generosity of her love made my betrayal even more unforgivable. The end came on a Thursday in September. Marcus was 18 months old, babbling constantly and trying to climb everything in sight. Alicia had gotten home early from work and was making dinner, Marcus playing with pots and pans on the kitchen floor. When I walked in,
"David," she said, turning to me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes anymore. "Perfect timing. I made your favorite, and Marcus learned a new word today. Tell Daddy what you learned, baby."
Marcus looked up at me and said, "Clear as day. Dado, work. Dado, work." The words hit me like a physical blow. My 18-month-old son had learned that Daddy was always at work, that work was more important than home, than family, than him. "Isn't that something?" Alicia said, her voice carefully cheerful. "He's so smart. He knows his daddy works hard to take care of us." I stood there in that kitchen, looking at my son playing happily on the floor, at the woman who'd given me everything I'd ever wanted, at the life I was about to throw away, and I felt something inside me shatter. "We need to talk," I said. Alicia's smile faded. "Okay, after dinner? I can put Marcus down early and we can..." Now, she must have heard something in my voice because she immediately picked up Marcus and put him in his high chair with some crackers to keep him busy. "What's wrong?" she asked, sitting across from me at the kitchen table. I'd rehearsed this conversation 100 times in my head, but sitting there, looking at her face, all my careful words disappeared. "This isn't working," I said. "What isn't working?" "Is this. I can't. I'm not ready for this kind of responsibility." The hurt in her eyes was immediate and devastating. "What are you saying, David?" "I'm saying I think we moved too fast. The baby, playing house, all of it. I'm not ready to be a father. You've been Marcus's father for 18 months. You can't just decide you're not ready now." "I can't do this, Alicia. I thought I could, but I can't." She was quiet for a long moment, looking at Marcus, who was obliviously munching his crackers and babbling to himself. "Is there someone else?" she asked finally.
I could have lied. I should have lied. Instead, I told her about Patricia. Not everything, but enough. Enough to see something die in her eyes.
"So you've been planning this," she said. "While I've been wondering what I did wrong, you've been planning to leave us for someone else. It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple." Her voice was steady, but tears were streaming down her face. "You're leaving your son for another woman. That's as simple as it gets." Marcus started fussing, sensing the tension in the room. Alicia picked him up automatically, holding him close while she looked at me with something I'd never seen before. Not just hurt or anger, but complete and utter disappointment.
"What about Marcus?" she asked.
I'll pay child support. Maybe we can work out some kind of visitation." "Visitation," she said the word like it tasted bitter. "You want to visit your son?"
"Alicia, please. This doesn't have to be ugly. We can figure this out like adults."
"Adults don't abandon their children, David. Adults don't spend months lying to the people they claim to love." I wanted to tell her she was right. I wanted to take it all back, to gather them both in my arms and promise to be better. Instead, I stood up and walked toward the door. "I'll come back for my things when you're not here," I said. "Don't bother," she said. "I don't want you to have anything that belongs in this house." I stopped at the door and turned back. Alicia was sitting at the kitchen table, holding Marcus, both of them looking at me. My son reached out his little hand toward me and said, "Dada." That was the last time I heard his voice for 15 years. I moved in with Patricia 2 weeks later. We were married 6 months after that, A small ceremony at St. Matthew's with all the right people in attendance. I made partner within a year. Everything my father had wanted for me fell into place perfectly. For the first few years, I paid child support religiously and told myself that was enough. I told myself that Marcus was better off without me, that Alicia would find someone else who could be a real father to him. I built a wall around that part of my life and pretended it didn't exist. Patricia knew about them, of course, but we had an unspoken agreement never to discuss it. She'd met her goal of marrying well, I'd met mine of building the perfect life. We were content in our mutual arrangement. But Marcus didn't disappear. He grew up in the same city, went to school with kids whose parents knew me. Sometimes I'd hear things, that he was smart, that he was good at math and science, that he asked questions about his father, but Alicia wouldn't answer them. When he was 7, he sent me a birthday card. It was handmade, with a drawing of a stick figure man and boy holding hands. Happy birthday, Daddy. Love, Marcus. Patricia found it in the mail and threw it away. I didn't stop her. When he was 10, he called the office. My secretary put him through before realizing who it was.
Hi, is this David Patterson? The voice was young but clear.
Yes.
This is Marcus. Marcus Johnson. I think you're my dad.
I hung up the phone. When he was 13, he showed up at my office building. I was coming back from lunch when I saw him sitting on the steps outside, waiting. He was tall for his age, with my nose and Alicia's eyes, wearing a school uniform and carrying a backpack. He stood up when he saw me. Mr. Patterson? I'm Marcus. I've been trying to reach you. You need to leave, I said, not stopping. I just want to talk to you. Just for a minute, please. I walked past him into the building. Through the glass doors, I watched him sit back down on the steps. He waited there for 2 hours before finally giving up and walking away. That night, Patricia confronted me. This has to stop, she said. He can't keep showing up here. It's embarrassing. I'll handle it. How? I called Alicia that night. It was the first time we'd spoken since the day I left.
Hello, David. Her voice was tired.
Marcus came to my office today. I know, he told me. It can't happen again, Alicia. I have a life now, a reputation to protect. There was a long pause. What do you want me to tell him? Tell him his father is dead. The silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. David, he's 13 years old. He knows you're alive. He knows where you work. He knows you just don't want to see him. Then make him understand that that's never going to change. You're really gonna make me destroy my son's hope because you're too selfish to have an honest conversation with him. I'm trying to protect everyone here. It's better this way. Better for who? Better for you. Better for all of us. He's better off without me. No, David, you're better off without him. There's a difference. She hung up. The next day, a letter arrived at my office by certified mail. David, Marcus asked me to send this to you. I told him not to, but he insisted. He said if you read it and still don't want to see him, he'll never bother you again. This is the last communication you'll receive from either of us. Alicia. Inside was a handwritten letter on lined notebook paper. Dear Dad, I know you don't want to see me, but I wanted to tell you some things. I'm really good at math and science. I want to be an engineer or maybe an inventor. Mom says I get that from you because you're really smart. I built a robot for the science fair and won first place. I wished you could have seen it. I know you have a new family now, and that's okay. I just wanted you to know that I think about you every day. And I hope you're happy. I promise I won't bother you anymore. But I wanted you to know that I love you even if you don't love me back. Your son, Marcus. I read that letter 50 times. I kept it in my desk drawer and took it out whenever I needed to remember why I was doing this. Why I was protecting him from having me as a father. But really I was protecting myself from having to be one. 15 years passed. I became managing partner of the firm. Patricia and I settled into a comfortable routine of charity galas and golf tournaments and Sunday church services. We never had children together. We never discussed why. I heard about Marcus occasionally through the gossip network of a small city. He'd gone to MIT on a full scholarship. He'd graduated summa cum laude with a degree in environmental engineering. He'd started a company that developed clean energy solutions for urban environments. I was proud of him and terrified of that pride in equal measure. Then came that Tuesday afternoon at the grocery store. Time magazine, America's young innovator. Marcus Johnson, CEO of Green Tech Solutions. the company that was revolutionizing solar panel efficiency for low-income housing projects. I bought 3 copies of the magazine. I sat in my car in the parking lot and read every word of the article twice. He developed a new type of solar cell that was 40% more efficient and 60% cheaper to manufacture than existing technology. He was 27 years old and already being mentioned in the same breath as Elon Musk and other tech innovators. The article mentioned that he'd grown up in a single-parent household and credited his mother with instilling in him both his work ethic and his commitment to social justice. There was no mention of a father. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that 13-year-old boy sitting on the steps of my office building, just wanting to talk to his dad. I kept thinking about the letter I'd saved all these years, about a little boy who built robots and wanted to share his achievements with a father who was too cowardly to care. I started researching his company. Green Tech Solutions employed over 200 people and had contracts with cities across the country. Marcus himself had been featured in Forbes' 30 Under 30 list. He'd given a TED Talk about sustainable energy that had been viewed over 2 million times. I watched that TED Talk 17 times. He had my mannerisms when he spoke, the same way of pausing to think before answering questions. But he had something I'd never had, genuine passion for making the world better. 1 month after seeing that magazine, I made a decision that terrified me. I drove to his office. Green Tech Solutions was housed in a converted warehouse in Hartford's Arts District. The lobby was modern, but unpretentious, with living walls and recycled materials. I told the receptionist I didn't have an appointment, but that I was hoping to speak with Miss Johnson about a potential investment opportunity. She made a call, and 5 minutes later, Marcus walked into the lobby. He was taller than I'd expected, probably 6'2", with an athletic build and an easy confidence that reminded me of Alicia. He was wearing jeans and a button-down shirt, his dark hair slightly messy like he'd been running his hands through it while working. He stopped when he saw me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "Hello, Marcus," I said.
David, he didn't call me Dad. I noticed that immediately.
"I saw the Time article. Congratulations." "Thank you." His voice was polite but guarded. "Is that why you're here?" "Partly. Could we talk? Privately?" He studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. "My office." We walked through the building in silence. Employees greeted Marcus warmly as we passed, and I could see why. There was something genuinely likable about him, an openness that drew people in. I wondered if he'd gotten that from Alicia or if it was something uniquely his own. His office was spacious but cluttered, with whiteboards covered in equations and prototypes scattered across every surface. Photos lined his bookshelf. Marcus with his team at various events. Marcus with Alicia at his college graduation. Marcus receiving awards and recognition. No photos of me, of course. But then again, I hadn't been there for any of it. He sat behind his desk and gestured for me to take a chair across from him. We sat there for a moment, just looking at each other. "You look like him," I said finally. "Like who?" "Like me, when I was your age." Is that supposed to mean something to me? The question was fair, but it stung. No, I suppose not. "Why are you here, David?" I'd prepared for this conversation, but sitting across from my son, this successful, accomplished man I'd had no part in raising, all my words disappeared. "I wanted to see you," I said. "I wanted to tell you how proud I am of what you've accomplished." "Proud." He said the word like he was testing it. "That's interesting. You're proud of accomplishments you had nothing to do with."
You're right, I have no right to be proud. I have no right to be here.
"Then why are you?" "Because," I said, "I've spent 15 years telling myself that leaving you was the right thing to do, that you were better off without me. And seeing you now, seeing what you've become, I realize I was half right." "Half right?" "You were better off without me, but I wasn't better off without you." Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying me. "What do you want, David? Forgiveness? Absolution? A relationship now that I'm successful enough to not embarrass you?" The accuracy of his assessment was devastating. "I don't know what I want. I just know that I've been carrying around this weight for 15 years, and I thought maybe if I could just tell you." "Tell me what? That you're sorry? That you made a mistake? That you wish things had been different?" "Yes, all of that." "Okay, you've told me. Is that all?" I stared at him. This stranger, who was my son. "Don't you have anything to say to me?"
What would you like me to say?
"That I forgive you. That I understand why you chose your career and your new wife over your child. that I'm grateful you stayed away so I could grow up without the disappointment of having a father who was ashamed of me. I was never ashamed of you. You were ashamed of what having a black son would cost you. There's a difference, but the result is the same. He was right, and we both knew it. I used to wonder, he continued, what I had done wrong. What was so fundamentally flawed about me that my own father couldn't love me. It took me years of therapy to understand that it wasn't about me at all. It was about you. Marcus, I'm not finished. His voice was calm but firm. You want to know what the worst part was? It wasn't that you left. It was that you kept sending child support. Every month, like clockwork. You know what that told me? That you had enough money to support me, but not enough love to see me. That I was worth a check, but not a phone call. I felt tears starting to form and tried to blink them back. I thought the money would help. The money kept me fed and clothed, but it also reminded me every month that my father was alive and chose not to be part of my life. We sat in silence for a moment. Finally, Marcus spoke again. Do you know what I learned from having you as a father? I learned what kind of man I never wanted to be. I learned that success without integrity is meaningless. I learned that love isn't something you give when it's convenient. It's something you give especially when it's not. You learned that from your mother. I learned that from your absence. I nodded, accepting the truth of it. She did a remarkable job raising you. She did it alone. Yes, she did. Marcus stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city we'd both grown up in, but never shared. I'm getting married next month, he said without turning around. Congratulations. Her name is Sarah. She's a pediatric nurse. We're having the ceremony at the Botanical Gardens. Mom's walking me down the aisle. The image of Alicia walking our son down the aisle, doing the job that should have been mine, hit me like a physical blow. I'm happy for you, I managed to say. I'm not inviting you. I know, but I wanted you to know that I'm going to be a father myself soon. Sarah's pregnant. We found out last week.
I looked at him standing there by the window. This man who was going to be everything I'd failed to be, and I felt something I'd never experienced before. Not pride, exactly, but something deeper. Awe.
You're going to be a wonderful father, I said. I'm going to be there, he said simply. Every day, for every moment that matters, I'm going to be the father I needed. He turned back to me then, and for just a second, I saw the little boy who used to reach for me when I came home from work. I don't hate you, David, he said. I used to, but I don't anymore. Hate takes too much energy, and I have too many important things to focus on. But I don't love you either. You're just a stranger who happens to share my DNA. I understand. Do you? Because I need you to understand that this conversation doesn't change anything. I'm not looking for a relationship with you. I'm not looking for you to be a grandfather to my child. I'm not looking for anything from you at all. Then why did you agree to see me? Because I wanted to look you in the eye and know that I turned out okay despite you, not because of you. I wanted to know that the little boy who used to wonder if his daddy would ever come home grew up to be a man who doesn't need his daddy at all. I nodded and stood up to leave. At the door, I turned back. For what it's worth, I said, I loved you. I loved you from the moment you were born. I was just too weak to love you more than I feared what loving you would cost me. I know, he said. That's the saddest part of all. I left his office and drove home to my empty house and my polite marriage and my successful career. That night, I sat in my study and thought about the choices I'd made and the man I'd become. 6 months later, I saw the birth announcement in the paper. Marcus and Sarah Johnson were proud to announce the birth of their daughter, Alicia Marie Johnson. 8 pounds, 3 ounces, born at Hartford Hospital. They'd named her after her grandmother, the woman who'd raised their father when his own father chose cowardice over love. I cut out the announcement and put it in my desk drawer, next to the letter Marcus had written me when he was 13 years old. 2 pieces of paper that represented everything I'd lost and everything I'd chosen to lose. I think about him every day now. I think about the grandchild I'll never meet, the daughter-in-law I'll never know, the son I'll never really have. I think about the man he became without me, and the man I became without him. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd been brave enough to choose love over fear. If I'd stood up to my father and the partners and the whole world that told me my son wasn't worth the cost of loving him. But mostly, I try not to wonder, because the truth is, Marcus was right. He turned out better without me than he ever would have with me. And maybe that's the only gift I ever gave him. The gift of my absence. The little boy who built robots and wanted to change the world grew up to do exactly that, and he did it without his father, because his father was too small a man to deserve a son so magnificent. That's the truth I live with every day. That's the price of choosing fear over love. And that's why, if you have someone in your life you're afraid to love fully, afraid to claim completely, afraid to fight for regardless of the cost, I'm begging you not to make the same mistake I did. Because some mistakes you live with forever, and some chances, once you let them go, never come back. Marcus Johnson is changing the world, one innovation at a time. And somewhere in Hartford, Connecticut, his father sits in an empty house, proud of a son who will never know it, grieving a relationship that could have been everything but became nothing instead. The magazine is still on my coffee table, my son's face smiling up at me, a constant reminder of the biggest mistake I ever made, and the greatest man I'll never really know. Would you want to know the truth if it would shatter your whole world? I thought I knew the answer to that question, but the truth is, sometimes the world you build on lies deserves to be shattered. Sometimes the truth is the only thing that can set you free, even if you're too late to do anything with that freedom, but regret.